Hey everybody, welcome to the video. It's Thursday, May 6th, and we're breaking down this 8-game day slate that we have over on DraftKings. Usually on Thursdays we have these split slate days, but that is not the case today, and that is perfectly fine by me because I do not like covering two slates in one day because it can get a bit chaotic, so I'm just fine with having our one slate early in the day, and then we have the rest of the evening to relax unless you're playing some NBA DFS. But if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate it. You want to find me over on social media, bottom right corner of your screen. You can find my social media handles. And if you want help support the channel over on Patreon, just get access to some extra content, got projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, data sheets, Discord community, all of that fun stuff. The link is down below. And I think that's it for the plugs. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. As per usual, we'll start with the pitcher position, then move on to the bats. And we got three pretty good pitchers here in Garrett Cole, Zach Wheeler, and Brandon Woodruff. Garrett Cole and Brandon Woodruff especially, both guys got above 30% K rates. Zach Wheeler is not really a huge strikeout guy, but he does get a lot of ground balls, almost the hard contact, and usually does have some pretty strong fantasy outings. So we'll start up top with the ace of the slate, Garrett Cole. 10-5 here. I feel like you're just going to want to play him in cash games just because he's, I don't want to say like far and away the best pitcher because Brandon Woodruff's very good as well and Zach Wheeler's no slouch, but he's kind of far and away the best pitcher in the slate. Definitely the ace here, and I know the matchup versus Houston's not very good, but only a 3.14 implied team total against him. Very heavy favorite, 9K prop as well, and look at the matchup against the Astros. Again, it's not something I'm super excited about. They actually have some pretty strong splits versus righties this season, including a K rate below 20%, a 171 team ISO, a 110 WRC+, a 315 WOBA, and some pretty strong numbers. So it's not like I'm really matchup hunting here, but as I always say, if you guys watch my videos, I always give the advantage to elite level pitching over a decent lineup, and that's what I'm going to do here today. And looking at Garrett Cole's numbers since last season, 36.4% K rate, 2.6 Sierra, 2.8 xFIP, 2.36 ERA. I mean, there's really nothing bad to say about Garrett Cole. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Pretty much right up there with Shane Bieber and Jacob deGrom as being best pitcher in baseball for the most part. I think those are our big three for the most part. So, yeah, no problems with Garrett Cole. I mean, the matchup's not great, but it's still Garrett Cole, so I don't think we should be concerned. Zach Wheeler, $9,600. So, I'm not really loving Zach Wheeler, but I did want to list him here just because I do like the matchup versus the Brewers. And outside of a couple guys, it's not a good lineup. I know Christian Yelich returned recently, but he's back on the IL, so the lineup just got even worse. I mean, the lineup outside of Christian Yelich is just really bad. Yes, there's a couple decent bats in Travis Shaw, Lorenzo Cain, and even Colton Wong, but it's just not that great of a lineup. These guys do strike out quite a bit versus right-handed pitching as well. And Zach Wheeler, well, he doesn't really boast a huge K rate. Dating back to last season, I think we're only sitting around 21.3% for his K rate. Doesn't really walk many guys. The appeal for Zach Wheeler is that high ground ball rate, over 50%, only a 24.8% hard contact rate, only a 103 ISO get up, and it's kind of what we're here for Zach Wheeler. He's not a guy that's going to get blown up for the most part. I just wish the strikeouts were higher, because if we're going to roster a guy close to $10,000, I'd really like the strikeouts to be there. Now, that's not to say that he can't get strikeouts. I mean, he's got above a 20% clip, and there's some games where he can be above average, and this matchup versus Milwaukee, I actually think it's a pretty plus matchup when it comes to strikeouts. Because so far this season, they're striking out a 27.2% clip to righties, only a 78 WRC+. So I think Zach Wheeler is fine as a tournament play. I don't think I'll get there in cash games because of the price point. The strikeout upside is just not as high as compared to guys like Brandon Woodruff and Garrett Cole. You could even throw an Eovaldi in there as well. But I do think Zach Wheeler is a fine matchup play and relatively safe pitcher to roster with some upside as well, just not quite on some other guys' levels. And then Brandon Woodruff, $9,300 on the opposite side of this game. Only a 3.4 implied team total. Slight favorite, 7.5K prop as well. And some pretty strong numbers from Woodruff. He's one of those pitchers that I do believe in quite a bit. I think he's a very talented pitcher. And he tends to be maybe a little bit underpriced on DraftKings somewhat. I don't want to say some weeks, but most slates that he starts. But $9,300 is a pretty respectable price tag for him. And I don't love the matchup versus the Phillies. It's a pretty strong lineup. We saw Freddie Peralta. He gave up the double, the walk, and then I think he gave up a grand slam to start the game yesterday. I'm recording this actually not the day of the yesterday's slate, so hopefully I don't keep getting them mixed up. But anyway, Freddie Peralta started off horribly. Then I think he had 6 straight strikeouts after that. I forget exactly how he ended because I was working on this stuff and getting some stuff ready for NASCAR. But I still think Woodruff can have a fine outing here. The matchup versus the Phillies, again, it's not ideal, but with Bryce Harper out of the lineup, it definitely softens the blow a little bit. But So far this season, the Philadelphia Phillies have been at a 25.9% K rate to righties, only a 139 team ISO and an 82 WRC plus. Those numbers are not too far off the Brewers, and Brandon Woodruff boasts over a 30% K rate and doesn't really give up too much hard contact. Gets a decent amount of ground balls as well and a pretty low batting average, so I can definitely get behind some Woodruff. If you want to spend up for pitcher day and make him your SP2, I think that's fine. Or if you want to get contrarian, fade Garrett Cole, and you want to fade Zach Wheeler, which I don't think is going to be contrarian to fade Zach Wheeler, but you could also go just Brandon Woodruff as your SP1. I don't think that's anything outlandish on this slate. Definitely think it's a viable way to go. And then if you're looking for some SP2s, we have Nathan Eovaldi here and Michael Pineda. And what we're doing here for the most part is just playing the matchup game. That's what I've been talking about in my videos recently, where some of these SP2s, they don't look great, but we're just playing the matchup game for the most part. Now, Eovaldi is definitely better than the guys we talked about yesterday, and Singer and not Eovaldi, but Martin Perez. I mean, he's got more talent than that. Only 3.5 implied team total here. Pretty heavy favorite, 66% chance for a win, 6K prop as well. I do like the Boston stack tonight, so as long as Eovaldi can go 5+ innings, I would imagine he's going to pick up the win and get that 4-point bonus. But his numbers really aren't that bad. 3.6 ERA, 3.4 xFIP, 3.5 Sierra, 24.6% K rate, low walk rate as well. Sometimes they can give some power, but the Detroit lineup's not something you're really going to be overly concerned about so far this season versus righties. Well, they've been worse versus lefties compared to righties. It's still not a good lineup. 29.2% K rate, that's fantastic for Eovaldi. Only a 7% walk rate, 279 WOBA and a 79 WRC plus. So really good matchup here for Eovaldi. $8,400. I think that price point is fine. I think he makes an excellent SP2 today if you don't want to double spend up for pitcher, which doesn't look like it's going to be something you have to do today. Then Michael Pineda, $7,500. He can be a bit up and down, so you never really know what you're going to get here. There's no implied team total out yet for this game as well, or I should say over-under for this game, let alone team totals. But I'd have to imagine that Rangers are probably going to be in the mid to upper threes. I can't imagine them being in the fours, because Pineda does have some upside, 24% K rate, and this matchup versus Texas is pretty good. They're one of those teams that I typically like to pick on with pitchers, and Pineda's fine. Like, I know he can struggle at times, and he's not the easiest guy to trust, but he does have some upside in his arm, and the matchup versus Texas does, I think makes him a little bit viable here. Versus righty so far this season, striking out over a 30% clip. They are walking quite a bit, and they do have a high WRC plus, high WOBA, and a high on-base percentage. I do prefer using lefties versus them, but I still think Pineda at the price point of $7,500 and the other SP2s in the slate aren't very good. I do think that makes him a little bit viable today, and you're mainly just matchup hunting for the last two pitchers that we have listed here. And with that being said, I think that's it for the pitching, so let's move right on to the bats. As per usual, we'll start with the catcher position, move around the diamond, hit the outfield as well. We'll start up top with Christian Vasquez, $4,200, going against Spencer Turnbull. I do like all the Red Sox today. They're looking like one of the best stacks to target. And as of right now, I believe they do have the highest implied team total on the slate at 5 even. I could see that potentially rising throughout the day, but it's a good spot here versus Spencer Turnbull, who's not a terrible pitcher, but if they can get to him early on, the Detroit bullpen we know is definitely in the bottom half of the league. It's definitely not a respectable bullpen. I think the Red Sox can definitely take advantage of that. And whether it's a righty or lefty, Boston does grade out pretty well here because all of these guys hit righties well. All these guys, for the most part, do hit lefties pretty well. So I do like all the Boston bats for the most part. Yan Gomes, $3,400. He went deep last night, and he gets another lefty on the mound here in Drew Smyly, so he's going to grade out pretty well for me. Smyly, while he does have some K upside in his arm, he just hasn't been very good this season. He's been giving up runs every single start so far, and really not any impressive fantasy games. So I definitely like Yan Gomes quite a bit versus Drew Smyly, and I do like all the Nationals righties for the most part as well, kind of similar to last night. And I would say Drew Smyly is a downgraded version of Max Fried. And William Contreras, $2,900. I believe he went deep last night, and we have small plate appearance sample size here, so I'm not going to look into any of the numbers too much, but he's been good, and I think he's played 3 games this year, maybe a little bit more than that, but I'm pretty sure it's 3, and he's produced every single time, and $2,900 versus a lefty in John Lester, who's definitely past his prime and a bit washed these days, or maybe even a little bit more than a bit washed. Pretty washed for the most part. I think he only had 1 strikeout in his first game, around 5 innings, if I remember correctly. So, do like all the Braves bats once again, and I'd like these Atlanta-Washington bats the past couple games I believe they've been playing, so you can sign me up for them once again. Then going down to first base, didn't really like any of the spend-up options. Yes, Freddie Freeman exists, and you can use him. Lefty-on-lefty matchup, though. I mean, he's fine versus lefties, but just didn't really love it here on this slate, so Find myself going either spend down or mid range. And Ryan Zimmerman, $4,200. Small sample size this year, but he is batting nearly 320 with close to a 300 ISO. And he's always had good splits versus left-handed pitching, so I do like Ryan Zimmerman batting cleanup. Nate Lowe, $3,600. Just a lefty here versus Michael Pineda. And while I do like Pineda tonight, I think a couple of these lefties on Texas could give him some issues. So guys like Nate Lowe, Joey Gallo, and even Willie Calhoun. There's a couple other bats that are viable as well. And if you think Pineda is going to have some decent ownership today, which I could potentially see that. I'm not really sure. It's like 12 a.m. the day before, so I guess technically the day of. So my mind will be a little more clear, and I'll have ownership projections ran and all that by the time I wake up tomorrow, or at least by noon tomorrow. I'm not sure when I'm going to wake up. I'm staying up late tonight, but well, I guess it's an early slate, so I'll have to get up early. But yeah, either way, I still think they're decent contrarian plays versus Pineda, especially if he does carry some ownership, which I'd imagine he would versus Texas. Then Ryan O'Hearn, $2,600, dirt cheap here, going up against Tristan McKenzie, who, as an Indians fan, I want to root for him here, but he has not looked great so far this season. He does have a couple of decent games mixed in there, but he's looked pretty lackluster for the most part, and he's still a young pitcher, so there's a lot to learn. And the Royals offense has been playing really good baseball this year, and so far this season, Ryan O'Hearn's got a near 270 ISO, low batting average, and pretty much the only thing Ryan O'Hearn offers you is some pop versus right-handed pitching, and that's the matchup that we have today, and he's really cheap, and first base doesn't look good, so I wouldn't hate getting to O'Hearn. Going to second base, we have Ozzie Albies. Did I say Ozzie? Ozzie Albies. $4,700. He gets a lefty on the mound. I love him versus lefties. He has some really good splits versus them, so I think he's fine if you're stacking the Braves. Kike Hernandez, $3,900. Going with Spencer Turnbull and whoever else Detroit happens to throw out there on the bullpen, like in all the Red Sox, and he's below $4,000, so he's just kind of like an easy plug-and play if you want the leadoff hitter for pretty much the best stack on the slate as of right now. Josh Harrison, $3,800. He's got better splits versus left-handed pitching, so I do like the Nats today versus Smiley. I think he makes an excellent stacking option, or just as a one-off option as well, as a position that's not typically great. Although today there's quite a few second basemen I like. You could throw Whit Merrifield in there as well, because I do like stacking against Tristan McKenzie today, but I do like Josh Harrison quite a bit, $3,800. Nationals do have a team total approaching 5 today. And going to third base, Rafael Devers, $5,200. Lefty on righty matchup here, and we know he crushes right-handed pitching. I like all the Red Sox, so it's going to be hard to leave off Devers in full stacks. Austin Riley, $3,900. Big fly ball guy versus lefties, and John Lester is a guy that's going to give it up to righties a little bit, and he's definitely not the greatest pitcher out there these days. I mean, back in the day, he was obviously fine, but not now. He's washed, and if they can get to the they can get the John Lester early and get to that Washington bullpen that's not performed very well this season, definitely a positive thing for the Atlanta Braves. Same goes for the Nationals. Atlanta's bullpen hasn't exactly put up the best numbers either this season. Then Starlin Castro with $3,200. I liked him quite a bit yesterday. I think he did fine. I'm going to say he had like a double, walk, and a run, which was just fine at his price point. Similar spot today, whether he's batting cleanup, third, fourth, or fifth. I kind of already mentioned that, but either way, I think he's a fine play for how cheap he is, and he's always had some really good splits versus left-handed pitching relative to his price point. Shortstop Xander Bogaerts, $5,100. I realize I have this out of order. I should have had Trey Turner, but Bogaerts. But the past few days, I feel like I've listed the exact same shortstops: Bogaerts, Turner, and Swanson every single day. It feels like for a week now, and it's usually when in that order: Bogaerts, Turner. So that's what got me confused there. But anyway, Xander Bogaerts, he's been great this season, batting .351, .420 WOBA, .252 ISO. I mean, nothing really not to like here besides the price point. Do like all the Red Sox today. Trey Turner, $5,300. I've been playing him the past couple of days, and he's been good. He hit a homer yesterday and gets a nice righty on lefty matchup here. And Trey Turner's been excellent this season, batting .320 with a .395 WOBA and a .227 ISO. And you know, we always know anytime he gets on base, there's massive stolen base upside as well, which does boost his floor and ceiling. So I love Trey Turner once again. I do like all the Nationals bats for the most part. Then Dansby Swanson, $4,100, righty on lefty matchup here. He's not doing well this season with a 71 WRC plus and a .215 batting average, but if you just want a cheap portion of that Brave stack, or that lineup, I should say, Swanson is definitely viable at $4,100. And then going down to the outfield, we have Ronald Acuna, $5,500. Ronnie Swanson. I think I was thinking of Ron Swanson. Dansby Swanson's teammate here. He's been amazing this season, batting .337, .474 WOBA, and a .386 ISO with the WRC plus approaching 200. And Acuna smashes left-handed pitching, so there's really nothing bad to ever say about Acuna. He's got plenty of power. He hits for a high average. He walks a lot. He has stolen base upside. He's just like the perfect player for the most part. Then JD Martinez, $5,200. Stacking the Red Sox, I mean, JD Martinez has crushed right-handed pitching this season. Usually we say he's crushing lefties, but this season he is crushing righties. Marcell Ozuna, was it last night he hit the grand slam? It was either the last night or the day before that, but I think it was Huascar Ynoa who hit the grand slam for the Braves 2 nights ago. So pretty sure that was tonight, but like him here versus John Lester, the lefty, and I mean, I've already said what I wanted to say about the Braves today, so I'm just kind of repeating myself, but talking about different players, but we know he's got plenty of pop versus lefties. Alex Verdugo, $4,200, just a kind of it's a fair price point for the Red Sox stack. Like, most of these guys are super expensive, but $4,200, not bad for a guy that's been very good versus righties this season overall. He's batting .314 with an ISO above 200, so it's going to be hard to leave out Verdugo in cash games and Red Sox stacks. Max Kepler, $3,400. He's been terrible this season, which kind of hurts me because you guys have watched my videos for quite a few years. I know I haven't talked about Kepler much this year, but I was a guy that pretty much recommended Kepler almost every single night, and he was on fire. So far this season, not really the case, and we started seeing him hitting the bottom half of the order recently, but even more recently, he did lead off for the Twins versus a righty last time there was a righty on the mound, so assuming that's the case again, Jordan Lyles is a guy you guys know I typically like to pick on. I know I don't have any like other Twins listed here, like Byron Buxton, Nelson Cruz, Josh Donaldson, those kind of guys, but they're all viable. I just didn't really like them individually over some of the other guys that we had listed, but they're all fine plays. But Kepler, past few seasons, he's had great splits versus righties. We'll see if that starts improving as the season progresses, which I imagine it would, but right now he's batting .210 with only a 113 ISO, so we're going to need those numbers to come up to feel too confident, but I do like that price point quite a bit. And then Joey Gallo, $3,100. If you're not using Pineda, I mean, only $3,100 for a guy with Joey Gallo's power. I mean, I'm not sure I'd call him a cash game play because it's Joey Gallo and he strikes out a ton, but he's got massive power versus righties and he's dirt cheap, so I think you can make a case for him in cash games. Then Andrew Benintendi, $3,000, just a lefty here versus Tristan McKenzie for some of the reasons I already mentioned with Ryan O'Hearn. But with that being said, guys, I think it's going to be it for the video, so I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate it. Hit that notification bell as well. If you want to follow me over on social media, you know where to find me at Pennell16 on Twitter and CPen16 over on IG. And if you want to help support the channel over on Patreon and get access to extra content, link is down below for that, for the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, data sheets, Discord community, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. But I think I'll stop rambling. Hope the weather is wonderful wherever you are, and I'll see you guys in the next video.